right, so now we're going to focus on one-step equations where we're multiplying and dividing. This is going to look a lot similar to when we were subtracting and adding. The only thing that's different is we do the opposite sign of multiply and divide. So instead, when you multiply, you're going to divide both sides by the coefficient. And when you divide, you have multiply on both sides of the coefficient. So what that would look like, for example, in number 1. So we have 10n equals 40. And if you remember, when you have a coefficient and a variable next to each other, it means they're being multiplied. So in this case, since we're multiplying, we're going to do the opposite of multiply to get that n by itself. So I'm going to divide by 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. So we're going to be left with 1n on that side. And then we're going to divide 40 by 10. When we divide 40 by 10, we are left with 4. So n equals 4. Now let's look at this one. Number 2, negative 108 equals 8x. So, and you may need to use your calculator for this one just because the numbers are a little bit bigger. We have 8x, and we need to get that 8 on the other side of the equal sign. So the 8 and the x are right next to each other, means they are being multiplied. So we're going to divide both sides by 8. And when you do that and you take 104 and divide it by 8, you get negative 13 equals x. Let's look at number 3. So with these ones, we're going to be using division instead. We have negative 6 equals b over 18. Whenever you see something like b over 18, or it might be written like this, that indicates division. So in this case, we're going to be multiplying to get that b by itself. So both sides we're going to multiply by 18. And so that'll cancel out on this side, and we're left with just b. Then on this side, we have 18 times negative 6. So 18 times negative 6 will give us negative 108. All right, let's look at number 4. So we have v over 8 equals 2. So on both of these, we are going to multiply by 8. So if we multiply, those would cancel out because 8 times 1/8, or v over 8 would just give us b. Those would cancel out. And then 2 times 8 gives us 16. So go ahead and try these next couple practice problems on your own, and then we'll come together. Now you've had some time to work on these practice problems. So let's look at number 1. Negative 143 equals negative 11x. So we look at this problem and we need to decide, are we multiplying, dividing? In this case, we're multiplying because negative 11 and x are right next to each other. So we're going to divide both sides of the equals by negative 11. And when we do that, this will cancel out over here. And then on the other side, we get 13. So we're left with just x over here. So x equals 13. Remember, when you divide a negative by a negative, it's going to give you a positive. So you may be tempted to say negative 13. It is not. It is positive 13. All right, let's look at number 2. M over 4 equals negative 13. So we need to decide what we're doing in that one. That one is a division problem. So in order to get the m by itself, we need to multiply by 4. Both sides are being multiplied by 4. So when we do that, those cancel out and we're left with just m. And then we have negative 13 times 4, which will give us negative 52. All right, let's look at number 3. Negative 5 equals a over 18. So again, this one's a division problem, so we're going to multiply both sides by 18. So on this side, those will cancel out and we're left with just a. And then on this side, we have negative 5 times 18, which will give us negative 90. So a equals negative 90. And you can go back and you can actually check that answer as well. If you have negative 5 equals a over 18, you should be able to take negative 90 and divide by 18 and get negative 5. So if you take negative 90 and you divide it by 18, yep, I get negative 5. So I know that answer is right. So you can always go back and plug in that answer and see if it works out. So then on this one, we need to decide if we are multiplying or dividing. So negative 15x equals 0. Those are being multiplied, so we're going to divide by negative 15. Those cancel out. We're left with just x equals 0 over anything is still going to be 0. So x equals 0. All right, and that's the end of one-step equations with multiplication and division.